This presentation will try to answer the question, why should we care about design research? It will do so by going back to the origins of design research, its purpose and history. It will look into the questions, what is design research good for, and where did design research come from? In the academic world, people have for centuries studied different subjects such as theology, mathematics, natural and social sciences, law, the humanities. But what about design? Does design have a place in the academic world? Should it have a place in the academic world? And how do academics, for example scientists, how do they look upon design as an academic subject? Do they believe it should be an academic subject? Let's try to answer that question through an imagined dialogue between a scientist and a designer. This dialogue could start by the scientist asking, what does it mean to do design research in information technology, say, in human-computer interaction or information systems? And the designer could then answer, well, you build some awesome stuff, it could be software, mobile apps, gadgets, whatever, and then you play around with it. The scientist is becoming a little suspicious, but he's polite, so he continues. Well, all this sounds fine, but how do you know the stuff you build is really good? And the designer answers, you just know it. And when people start to blog and tweet and companies join up to invest, then you can be really sure about it. The scientist is becoming even more suspicious and he asks, but don't you care about validity, reliability, theoretical foundations, and all those rules of science? Nope, the designer answers, we care about creating useful things that people actually need or want and pay for. And here the dialogue breaks down. The scientist thinks that design that's only a theoretical tinkering, only going for market success, no rigor whatsoever. And the designer thinks that scientists, academics, well, that's only useless, boring academic snobbery. They don't give a damn about relevance. What is playing out here is a conflict between values, between rigor and relevance. The scientist goes for rigor. He wants to ensure reliability and validity of research results. He wants to build knowledge in a cumulative way so that new knowledge is related to old knowledge and to theoretical foundations. And for doing this, he wants to use established research methods. The designer, on the other hand, he goes for relevance. He wants to address real, practical problems out there in reality. He wants to produce useful results that people can benefit from, and he wants to get acceptance from stakeholders, for example, by companies buying his results. So, to summarize, designers, they stress relevance. They want to solve real problems in the real world and produce useful and practical results that can be accepted by stakeholders. Scientists, on the other hand, they stress rigor. They want to build more and more knowledge. They want to ensure validity and reliability by using established research methods, and they want to relate their results to theories. Now, what does this mean for design? What are the implications for design? Should design and science be kept separate? Should the two never meet? Or could we somehow incorporate the ideas from science, the ways of thinking and the ways of working from science, could we somehow move that into the ways of working in design? Well, this is exactly what design science tries to do. It tries to combine relevance with rigor by taking ways of working from science and incorporate that into design. Exactly what this really means and how it can be achieved, this is what we will cover in the rest of this course. So we have seen that one reason for the interest in design science and design research is that we can actually improve design work by including and incorporating scientific ways of working. But there's also another, a more sociological or institutional explanation to this increased interest in design science. And it is that we want to make design, and in particular design education, more legitimate and more modern. In order to see how science can help to make design and design education more legitimate, let's back to a very basic question. Who is a designer? Here is a quotation from Herbert Simon, and he says that everyone designs who devises courses of action that aim at changing some existing situations into preferred situations into better situations. And in that sense, essentially all professionals are designers. Doctors and policemen and soldiers and managers and judges and cooks, etc., all of them are in fact designers because they want to change the world, to change it into something better. So there are lots of different professionals and thereby lots of different designers. And where do they learn their professions? Where are they educated? Well, in the past, designers of different kinds, they were often educated in separate institutions. There were trade schools, schools of engineering, in Germany, Technische Hochschule, in France, École Polytechnique. There were business schools, schools of education, medical schools, and so on and so on. Separate institutions. But today we see that designers often are educated in universities. And even if they are educated in business schools and schools of engineering, we see that these are becoming more and more science-like. But why is this so? Why are designers nowadays often educated in universities? Why are the special institutions for professionals and for designers, why are those educational institutions changing? Why is science invading design? Well, one answer to this is that since the end of the 19th century, science has become more and more important for the different professional disciplines, for engineering, medicine, and other areas of design. Just think about bioengineering or medical drugs, chemical industry, the atomic bomb. By the way, the photo here to the right is from the Manhattan Project. Nowadays we have nanomaterials, IT, and so on, and all of these rely heavily on science and scientific results. And thereby science has become a big triumph, a big success in society. It has become the norm. And to be legitimate, the educational institutions for professionals, they wanted and they needed to become more scientific to fit in the modern world. So as Herbert Simon says, engineering schools, they became schools of physics and mathematics, medical schools, they became schools of biological science, and business schools, they became schools of finite mathematics. But isn't this just fine? Is there any problem here? I mean, science is indeed valuable for professionals and for designers. They need scientific knowledge in order to be successful. But still, scientific knowledge can't completely replace design knowledge. Design knowledge is also needed for professionals. So, the professional education institutions, they face a dilemma. They want to be more modern and legitimate, and to be so, to be legitimate, they should make sure that science is a central part of their curriculum. And this means that they will replace design knowledge with applied science or science. And this in turn means that students will learn less about design, and thereby they will not be so well prepared for their professional work. So this trend of putting more and more of science into design educations, into professional educations, maybe that means that the baby will be thrown out together with the bathwater. One idea would be to make design itself more scientific and rigorous. And this is where design science could come into play. So here is another reason now for an increased interest in design science and in design research, that professional education institutions, they would like to become more modern, more legitimate, and they can be so by emphasizing and introducing more of design science and design research into their curricula. To summarize, here are two reasons why we should put science into design. The most basic one, the most important one, is that we can actually improve design work by incorporating ways of working from science. The second reason is more sociological, more institutional. It means that we take the perspective of professional education institutions who would like to become more legitimate and more modern, and they can become so by including scientific methods in design work and make sure that their curricula contain such material.